Hello everyone, and welcome to Interview an Expert. I'm Richard Kavanagh, and I'll be your host for the next half an hour. Also making this program possible is our streaming technician, Morgan Holmes. If you are joining us from Newfoundland, then good morning, and good afternoon to those of you in Ireland. On this program, we have a distinguished speaker and expert in the study of technology education, Dr. Ronan Dunbar. Today's topic is inspired by a book chapter co-authored with Dr. Niall Seary and Mr. Joseph Phelan called Industrial Perspectives, Translational and Transactional Agendas, on the translational and transactional relationship between industry and technology education, where the needs of industry and general education goals are combined to influence what is included in technology curricula. We have some interesting questions prepared for our guest, so be sure to keep your ears peeled for this rare opportunity. Dr. Dunbar studied at the University of Limerick from 2001 to 2006, where he earned a Bachelor of Technology Education in Materials Science in Materials and Engineering Technology. He then continued to study at the University of Limerick, obtaining a doctor's degree of philosophy, concentrating on engineering and technology education. Dr. Dunbar taught and researched at several institutions and currently lectures at the Technological University of the Shannon. He has a demonstrated history in technology education curriculum design and reform at second and third level, which is of particular interest to our audience. His research interests include innovative teaching and learning, instructional design, learner characteristics, problem solving, industry-based learning and problem/project-based learning. We are thrilled to have the opportunity to ask you our questions today, Dr. Dunbar, and we look forward to hear what you have to say. All right. No, it's hard having your life summarized in 200 words or so. All right, no problem. Thank you for coming. If you're ready, we have some questions lined up for you. Perfect. So our first one, your chapter highlights the importance of the translational effect, stating industry provides context for second-level technology education and informs the transactional agendas of teaching and learning interactions to best represent authentic industrial practice. In Newfoundland and Labrador, the oil and gas sector is a relevant industry that students should be educated about. It is also a significant source of income for the province. Given that the provincial government determines technology curricula within the province, and the province stands to benefit if students pursue a career in oil and gas, might this not present a conflict of interest that could negatively affect the scope of what students learn?
Yeah, absolutely. Great opening question, and I think it kind of it captures the whole essence of why we went about exploring this issue and trying to put it into a book chapter for technology educators and student teachers and practicing teachers to relate back to how we should go about thinking about this industry technology education nexus and the connection between the two. And of course, like we all have these, so we think of like the global impact of technology education, but we also have all our more local economies and our local regions to think about and what we need to respond to. So of course in your situation it's incredibly important that young people going through your education system and choosing to study technology education are informed about one of the key industries in your region, which is that oil and gas industry that you've spoken about. The conflict of interest piece. I think that whole idea of the conflict of interest between what industry needs and what we do within technology education, that really highlights the importance of the role of the curriculum designers, and the role of teacher educators, and subsequently, and almost most importantly, the role of the teacher in the classroom. the role of the student teacher learning their trade before they go out into the classroom, all of those things. So it's critically important that we reflect upon that conflict of interest, because I had a quick scan through some of your written curriculum around technology education before I came online with you, and there are really admirable I think they're referred to as GCOs, which are general curriculum outcomes, yeah. And there's really admirable outcomes within your written curriculum um, around kind of informing young people around technology and careers, and informing young people. Another area of GCOs on your curriculum is this whole idea of technological responsibility. So that's your written curriculum. So that's what's on paper, and that's what is stated that is relevant to be taught in your classroom. So therefore it's down to the teacher then to make sure that they enact that within the classroom, and don't let this agenda of industry become the most important thing in the classroom. So um, I think it's down to us as teachers to make sure that the industrial agenda doesn't take over, and that we concentrate on, I suppose, what I've outlined in that book chapter as the more emancipatory role of technology education.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dunbar. I was really excited to hear your answer about that question, actually, so thank you for taking the time for that one.
I hope I answered it, did I?
No, that was perfect. Thank you. Uh, our next question is, we understand technology has provided skills needed for industry beyond just practical matters, skills like problem solving and critical thinking. However, industry may not evaluate these skills like they evaluate practical skills. If skills they if we are attempting to prepare students for their future career opportunities, would it be appropriate to instead define what industry desires in a new employee instead of needs?
Okay, so yeah, probably a slight differentiation in terms of between um, what industry desires and what they need, because I think most of the time they desire what they need. So it's kind of a needs driven um, societal construct. And I think when you're trying to consider these things and how we prepare students for their future career opportunities, that's a useful way to think about industry. Um, Not to think about it as a money making capitalist construct, but to think about it as a key critical social construct. Um, we hang our hats a lot on our profession in life, and it forms a lot around how we identify ourselves, our identity, etc. And I think, like, to get back to the crux of your question, if we're going about attempting to prepare students for their future career opportunities, I think that's what we should focus on. Um, Industry will always have their desire and needs, but um, I don't think we can overlook industry. It's a critical social construct that enables us to live our lives as we live them, not only by providing the products and services that we consistently consume in our day-to-day lives, but also providing employment and providing identity for people within society. Um, so I think it's more important to define industry for young people rather than defining anything for industry. That's our role as educators. And then what we allow young people to do is make their own informed judgments around, what they want. Do they feel um, the desire or the need to actually try and fill some of those roles that industry are providing? So it's not for us to be subservient to industry. It's for us to actually take benefit from what industry offers to us as technology educators, and take benefit from the opportunities that industry actually offers to our young people and to their futures. I'm not sure if I have answered your question directly, but um, that's my thoughts on that whole idea of kind of trying to how do we prepare students for these career opportunities.
No, no, Dr. Dunbar, that was perfect. Thank you. It's definitely more important to consider what students are going to need uh, for more, personal needs opposed
Hmm.
to just industry needs alone.
Yeah,
Uh,
my thoughts exactly.
mhm. Our next question for you today is your chapter spoke concerning how exposure to technological activity can provide a basis upon which students make informed decisions regarding their interests in that career path. And one effect of it is that it dispels any misconceptions about practical education's relevance and function. Were you speaking to any sort of misconception? And if you were, would you be able to elaborate on what kind of misconception that was and how it's uh, uh, dispelled, please?
Um, so I think we were probably speaking in the chapter around, so your question stated misconceptions about practical education. I think what we were trying to talk to in the chapter were misconceptions about technological activity within technology education. And some of the misconceptions around technological activity, and not just amongst students, etc., but amongst teachers of other subject areas or amongst school management, is that maybe the technology subject area is still quite vocational in its nature, or even neo-vocational, whereas we're really trying to argue the point that technology education and the types of technological activities that we try to introduce students to through our subject area, um, that's where the misconception lies, because it's the transactional model within the book chapter that talks about trying to move towards balance. If we consider technology education as trying to develop students' technical competencies versus creating active citizens. And what we're trying to say there is that we're trying to dispel that misconception away from technology education still being that subject area that supplies a workforce for industry. Now, what we're arguing is that technological activities can actually create these critical emancipatory type. You're actually, and by emancipatory I refer to this idea of giving people freedom to make their own choices, because they're actually informed about the effects that technology has on society or the opportunities that technology can offer, etc. So that's the misconception that we're trying to overcome here. um, and I think it's only through continued um, continuous professional development of practicing teachers, and through teacher education and getting teachers out into the classroom that really value what our subject can offer in terms of its emancipatory role, or how it can educate people around responsible and sustainable actions. I think that's when these misconceptions will be dispelled. That's when our subject area will actually start to get the credit it deserves in terms of what it can actually achieve towards creating not just a skilled workforce, but also contributing towards a key area of being an active citizen and an informed citizen.
Very true, Dr. Dunbar. Thank you. I've certainly found that in the tech courses, I've noticed similar things here at the university. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, our next question for you today is technology education is frequently regarded as a less academic pursuit than traditional academic subjects such as the arts and sciences. I think that you and I have touched on this a little bit. How might this misconception be addressed? And can the rapid industrial societal change caused by Industry 4.0 provide a potential solution to that problem?
Yeah, so I think my response is quite similar to the previous question in terms of there is a misconception there, and it's the same people. It's probably people who have studied technology education a number of years ago and who are now in roles of school management or who are teaching different subject areas. But um, yeah, it is seen as being less academic, but I'm delighted to say in an Irish context, we're starting to see a shift on that, because so for instance, I always get mixed up in terms of grades because we talk in years here, year one, year two, or first year, second year, third year. But when I talk about our junior cycle, I'm talking about years of education for 12 to 15 or 16-year-olds, just to help your classmates kind of contextualize who I'm talking about. But we have a new junior cycle, and within junior cycle, we've new statements of learning. And I think when you look down through the 23 or 24, whatever it is, statements of learning within that new junior cycle framework, you start to see a lot of key statements of learning that we can now identify as statements of learning that are commonly addressed within the technology education classroom. So it has given us great grounds to actually argue that our subject area is one that is ticking the boxes and has been ticking the boxes of what you are now calling the key statements of learning within our junior cycle framework. And we've been doing that for a long time, and we can stay doing that, and we can elaborate on them to make sure that our subject area becomes central to what we're trying to achieve through our junior cycle reform. Um, the second half of that question referred to, can industrial change, or such as Industry 4.0, provide a solution to this? And I think industry are starting to chip in on this, that they're saying the digitalization skills, the critical thinking skills, and all the things that are really relevant for Industry 4.0. I think they're starting to see that technology education is starting to tick a lot of those boxes in terms of preparing students to go on and do further studies, and prepare them to contribute validly to what the fourth industrial revolution is bringing about.
Thank you, Dr. Dunbar. We here in the Tech Ed program at MUN in Newfoundland, we've heard a lot about how good that the tech program is in Ireland. So that's, I think that going forward, you might see Newfoundland trying to copy off of what Ireland is doing and to learn from you. So
Yeah, hopefully.
Let's hope so.
Hopefully we'll set good examples. Yeah.
Our next question is, the onset of Industry 4.0 made rapid curricular adaptation to current societal and industrial needs all the more pressing. Could you please explain what about Industry 4.0 distinguishes it from its predecessors that has made it have such an impact?
I think it is the exponential rate of change is what differentiates it from, and the uncertainty as to what next. What's the next piece of technological advancement that's going to come about? And I think that's why, like, you think of our subject area within the STEM acronym. Yeah, so the technology and the engineering sitting within the middle of that STEM acronym and being the poor cousins to our well-formed foundational subjects of science and maths. I think one of the reasons why we find it most difficult to establish ourselves on a par with those is that our subject matter is constantly changing. And I think it's similar for Industry 4.0 and the previous industrial revolutions as such. Industry 4.0 is a reflection of the world we live in now. It's just constantly evolving. You can see the effects that artificial intelligence and technology such as them and the Internet of Things and big data, all of these things and the impact that they're having. I think um, that's probably why goals such as agility and resilience and perseverance have to become central to what we do in technology education, because sometimes it can be so frustrating to upskill and then find by the time you get to the end of the course that you've taken that it's now redundant. The next thing has already arrived. So it's all about being agile, it's all about being adaptive, and it's all about being able to stay abreast of what's coming next.
Yeah, Dr. Dunbar, I couldn't agree more with that one, actually.
Yeah.
We have one last question for today. Uh, from the audience. Yeah. So Victoria Short asks, most of us from small communities where tech shop-based courses are still seen as male-dominated, how can we work to decrease this stigma?
A massive challenge, and it's just to give you a bit of context, we have a technology education research group. We have maybe 12 researchers, and we're proud to say that 5 or 6 of them are female researchers in technology education, largely down to the fact that, you know, we encouraged them to join us so that we could try and help address that issue of the massive gender gap within technology education. And it's one that we went about trying to address through diversifying the type of activities that we were doing within our teacher education program, here in Toos in Athlone in Ireland, trying to target obviously all girls schools and trying to encourage them to take technology education on board. And we saw maybe our role as teacher educators. I think it's about trying to create role models um, and female role models for younger female students then who can see, yeah, do you know what, there is a future in this sector for me. We've tried to do that, but it's still a constant battle. So much so that I can tell you we've recruited 22 student teachers into our program this year, and we have one female teacher in that cohort. Um, so it's a battle we're in together. Jessica, I'm delighted to hear a female student asking that question. And I think it's one that we need to really try and put our heads together and try and answer sooner rather than later, because the longer the gender gap goes on, I think we're losing 50% of the talent pool. That's the way I always see it. When you're not recruiting females or predominantly males, you're losing 50% of the talent pool who could be studying technology education. And I think when you do recruit female students, um, they tend to succeed and they tend to be extremely strong participants in the subject area. So it's one that I don't have an answer to, unfortunately, but that I'm actively involved in and trying to address with some of my colleagues here in Toos, and um, one that I think we have a responsibility to try and stay on top of and stay challenging the norm and try and attract more female students into our subject area. So good question, but unfortunately one I can only wish I could answer.
Uh, yeah, that's very true. I'm glad to say that here with our tech cohort, we actually have about a 50-50 split, so progress is being
Super.
made, but there's still a lot
Okay,
more
we
work to be done, of course.
we need to talk to you.
We do have one last more question from the audience, Mr. Dunbar.
Yeah.
Uh, how can we promote future careers in future technology education?
Um, I think it's an easy sell, because the world that we're living in is becoming incredibly technological. So young people nowadays are um, very technology astute, very technology aware, etc. But I think what we probably need to do is not sell how cool AR VR is or how cool the utility of artificial intelligence is. But what we do need to try and do is sell the whole idea of how fulfilling um, jobs and careers within technology are. And I think the main fulfillment comes from the idea that you are now someone, if you're a technologist or if you're involved in technology education or a career in technology, now you're someone that has the tools within their hands to make societal change. You are going to be able to make the world around you a better place for people in your locality or globally, depending on the impact that you have. But I think that's the main sell. I think it's not about working with cool technology, it's about what you can actually use that technology to do to make the world a better place for whoever that may be, the end user.
Well, thank you, Dr. Dunbar, for answering all of our questions today. Excellent answers, by the way, very interesting, for sure.
Richard, thanks a million. They were great questions, and it was a pleasure. Cheers.
Well, I'm sure that all of our audience as well thanks you for coming here today. And with that, we'll be ending our session of interview an expert. However, we'll be having one next week as well, so we hope that our audience joins in for that one. Perfect.